Doo-ha Kim sat in the dark room of his apartment, his eyes fixed on the computer screen. The satellite images showed something that made his hands shake. 12 ships, arranged in a perfect arrow formation, were moving past Neptune. They were coming toward Earth. He knew that formation. He had seen it before in old military files from wars across history. It was the same pattern armies used before they attacked a weaker enemy. Doo-ha had spent 15 years as a military sniper, and he knew what an attack looked like. The clock on his wall showed 3:15 a.m. He picked up his phone and called his old commander. "General Park, we have a problem," Doo-ha said when the phone picked up. "Kim, do you know what time it is?" The general's voice was rough with sleep. "Sir, look at the satellite feeds from the outer system. They're using the arrow of conquest formation. It's the same one from every major invasion in history." There was a long pause. "Kim, you were a good sniper, but you need to stop seeing enemies everywhere. Those are probably just asteroids. Asteroids don't move in perfect formations, sir." Doo-ha's voice was firm. "And they don't change direction to avoid our detection satellites." "Enough." General Park's voice got loud. "You've called 3 times this month about possible invasions. First it was about strange radio signals, then about lights on the moon. I'm tired of this. Get some help, Kim. That's an order." The line went dead. Doo-ha put down his phone and walked to his closet. Behind his clothes was a long black case. He opened it and took out his old sniper rifle. His fingers moved automatically, checking every part. The weapon was still perfect, just like the day he had left the military. He went back to his computer and started downloading more satellite images. The ships were now passing Uranus. They were moving fast, faster than any human spacecraft could travel. Each ship was bigger than an aircraft carrier. Doo-ha opened another program on his computer. It showed a map of all the military bases near Seoul. He had worked at most of them. He knew their security, their weaknesses, and most importantly, he knew where they kept their long-range communication equipment. If the military wouldn't listen to his warning, he would have to make them see the truth. And if these aliens were really coming to attack Earth, they needed to know one thing: humans weren't easy targets. He put on his old black combat uniform. It still fit perfectly. In his pockets, he put 3 energy bars, a small water bottle, and his old military ID card. He picked up his rifle case and walked to the door. His neighbor, old Mrs. Cho, was in the hallway. She smiled at him. "Going hunting, Mr. Kim?" He nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Cho. Very big game this time." Outside, the streets of Seoul were quiet. The first hint of dawn was just starting to show in the east. Doo-ha walked to his car, an old black sedan that didn't attract attention. He put his rifle in the trunk and started driving toward the nearest military base. The guards at the base would change shifts in exactly 47 minutes. There would be a 2-minute gap in the security camera coverage. That would be his chance to get in. As he drove, Doo-ha looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, those ships were getting closer. He didn't know who they were or what they wanted, but he knew one thing. If they were coming to conquer Earth, they had made a big mistake. His phone buzzed. A new alert from his satellite tracking program. The ships had changed formation again. Now they were spreading out, like fingers opening to grab something. The same pattern the Mongols used before surrounding a city. "You think we're weak," Doo-ha said quietly to the sky. "You think we'll be easy to conquer. But I'm going to teach you something about humans." He touched his rifle case. "We don't surrender. And I'll kill every last one of you if I have to." The sun was rising as he parked his car in the shadows near the military base. It was time to make the world listen. Time to prepare for a fight that would change everything. And somewhere in space, the invaders had no idea that they were already dead. They just didn't know it yet. 3 days after Doo-ha broke into the military base, the aliens arrived. Their ships hung over every major city on Earth, casting long shadows over the frightened people below. In Seoul, The biggest ship floated above the presidential building like a metal mountain in the sky. Duha watched from the roof of an old office building, his rifle ready. Through his scope, he could see the alien ship clearly. Its surface wasn't smooth and shiny like in movies. Instead, it was covered in patches and repairs, like an old car that had been fixed too many times. The government has agreed to meet with the alien ambassador. His radio crackled. It was Yoon-ji, a young computer expert who had believed his warnings. She had helped him hack into the military's communication system. Where? Duha asked, his finger resting beside his rifle's trigger. The Grand Hall. They're meeting in 30 minutes. Yoon-ji's voice was worried. The aliens call themselves the Galactic Empire. They're demanding Earth's surrender. Duha adjusted his scope. The Grand Hall had big windows, perfect for a sniper. Tell me about their ambassador. His name is Hae-Nul. He's already inside. Duha. He looks human, almost exactly like us. That made Duha pause. Through his scope, he could see people entering the Grand Hall. World leaders, military commanders, and scared-looking politicians. They walked like people going to their own funeral. Then he saw the alien ambassador. Hae-Nul was tall and wore a pure white uniform with gold buttons. He looked confident, almost bored, as he walked into the hall. But Duha saw something else. The ambassador's uniform was worn at the edges. The gold buttons were dull, just like the ship above. Everything about him looked old. Duha switched on his radio again. Yoon-ji, can you hack into their ship's communications? Already did, she said proudly, but most of it is in their language. The computer is still translating. Send me what you have. His phone buzzed. Duha looked at the messages Yoon-ji had intercepted. Most were gibberish, but some had been translated. His eyes widened as he read them. Running low on fuel. Repairs delayed again. Rebellion in Sector 7. Cannot hold much longer. Duha smiled. He had been right. The mighty Galactic Empire was dying. Their ships were breaking down. Their empire was falling apart. This wasn't an invasion. It was a desperate grab for resources by a failing power. Through his scope, he watched Hae-Nul stand up to speak. The alien's voice came through the building's speakers, broadcast the whole city. People of Earth, Hae-Nul said, your planet now belongs to the Galactic Empire. Surrender now, and you may live as our servants. Resist, and we will destroy you completely. The world leaders looked at each other in fear. One of them stood up, ready to surrender. Duha took a deep breath. He thought about all the times in history when bigger powers had tried to take over smaller ones, how they always thought victory would be easy, how wrong they always were. Yoon-ji, he said quietly, start broadcasting on all frequencies. Send everything to every screen in the city. Show everyone what I'm about to do. His finger moved to the trigger. Through the scope, he could see Hae-Nul's face clearly. The alien was smiling, thinking he had won. The rifle made almost no sound. The bullet flew straight and true, just like all the thousands of shots Duha had taken before. Hae-Nul's head snapped back, and he fell. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Duha pressed his radio button. His voice boomed through every speaker in the city, broadcast by Yoon-ji to every screen, every phone, every device. Listen well, dying empire, he said calmly. You thought we would be easy to conquer. You thought we were weak. But you just made the biggest mistake of your lives. I am just one human with one rifle, and I promise you this, I will kill you all. Above the city, alarms began to sound on the Imperial ships, and for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire felt something they had forgotten. Fear. Chaos erupted in Seoul after Hae-Nul's death. The Imperial ships turned their weapons toward the city, glowing with angry red light. In the command ship, Imperial Commander Jae-won slammed his fist on his control panel. Find that sniper, Jae-won shouted at his officers. I want him dead before the sun sets. But Duha was already moving. He broke down his rifle and put it in its case as he ran down the stairs of the office building. Behind him, he could hear the sound of Imperial shuttlecraft landing on the streets. His phone buzzed. They're sending soldiers to every building in a 1-mile radius. Yoonji warned him. But their scanners aren't working well. Too much interference from the city. Keep watching their communications, Duha said as he reached his car. I need to know what they're saying to each other. He drove calmly through the panicked streets. People were running from the Imperial soldiers, who wore armor that looked just as worn as their ships. Duha noticed how some of their weapons had tape holding them together. At a military checkpoint, soldiers stopped his car. But when they saw his face, they quickly waved him through. His shot had been seen by everyone. Now, instead of being the crazy ex-sniper, he was the man who had stood up to the Empire. Inside the main military base, General Park was waiting for him. The old man looked tired but determined. You were right, Park said simply. And now we need your help. Tell us everything you know about them. Duha pulled out his phone and showed them Yoonji's data. Their empire is falling apart. Their ships are old. Their weapons are breaking down. They came here because they're desperate. But they still have better technology than us, a young officer said. Their ships could destroy our cities. Maybe, Duha agreed. But look at this. He pointed to an image of an Imperial soldier. See how they hold their weapons. They're not soldiers anymore. They're bullies who are used to everyone giving up without a fight. They don't know what to do when someone fights back. Suddenly, Yoonji's voice came through his phone. Duha, they're starting their attack. Outside, the Imperial ships began firing at the city. But something was wrong. Most of their shots missed. The ones that hit did less damage than everyone expected. Their targeting systems are failing, Duha said with a smile. They can't maintain their equipment properly anymore. This isn't an advanced empire. It's a dying one trying to look strong. General Park turned to his officers. Spread the word to all military bases. We're not surrendering. We're fighting back. He looked at Duha. What do you need? Give me 20 good snipers, Duha said. And I need Yoonji to keep tracking their communications. We're going to teach them why you should never threaten Earth. As they planned, more Imperial ships arrived. They filled the sky like angry metal clouds. Commander Jaewon's voice boomed across the city. People of Earth, you have 1 hour to surrender the sniper who killed Ambassador Haenul. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities one by one. Duha walked to the window and looked up at the ships. He could see the rust on their hulls, the flickering of their failing engines. Then he looked at the determined faces of the soldiers around him. Tell everyone what we learned, he told General Park. Show them the truth about the Empire. Let everyone see how weak they really are. As the hour began to count down, Duha met with his team of snipers. Each one was skilled, and now they were angry. The Empire had threatened their homes, their families. They think size and technology make them strong, Duha told his team. But we have something they lost long ago, the will to fight. Today, we show them that humans don't bow to empires. Above them, the Imperial ships waited, their weapons ready. But now everyone could see the truth. The mighty galactic empire was just a paper tiger, and humanity was ready to tear it apart. 1 week after the Empire's attack began, Duha stood in an underground bunker with his team. 20 snipers sat in front of him, cleaning their rifles. On the wall, Yoonji had set up screens showing Imperial ship movements. Their ships are getting sloppy, Yoonji said, pointing to the screens. Look how they fly. It's like they're drunk. Duha nodded. Their pilots are tired. They haven't had a real fight in hundreds of years. Now they have to stay alert all the time. And they don't know how. He turned to his team. These men and women had already proven themselves. In the past week, they had shot down 15 Imperial shuttlecraft. Each shot had been perfect, hitting the small weak spots in the old ship's armor. Today we start something new, Duha told them. Yoonji has found a pattern in their patrol routes. They're trying to save fuel by taking the same paths every time. Yoonji stepped forward. She was young, but her eyes were sharp and clever. I've also cracked more of their communications. They're scared, really scared. No one has ever fought back like this before. One of the snipers raised his hand. But they still have those big ships. We can't shoot those down. Duha smiled. No, but we can make them shoot each other. He walked to a table where a small device sat. It looked like a regular radio, but Yoonji had built it using parts from a crashed Imperial shuttle. This copies their emergency signals, she explained. When a ship is in trouble, it sends out a distress call. Other ships have to respond immediately. It's an old law of their empire. And their ships' targeting systems are so bad now, Duha added, that they sometimes shoot before they're sure what they're shooting at. The team began to understand. Their eyes lit up with excitement. We're going to place these devices around the city, Duha continued. When we shoot down a shuttle, we trigger the fake distress calls. In the confusion, their big ships will end up firing at each other. Suddenly, Yoonji's computer beeped. New messages from the Empire's ships appeared on the screen. As she read them, her eyes went wide. Commander G1 is getting desperate, she said. He's ordered all ships to shoot anything that moves. He doesn't care about civilian casualties anymore. Duha picked up his rifle. Then we move now. Team 1, take the north sector. Team 2, south. Remember your training. 1 shot, 1 kill, then move immediately. Don't let them trace your position. As his team prepared to leave, a young sniper named Taiwan asked, "What if they'd bring more ships?" "Let them come," Duha said quietly. "Every ship they send is one more that won't be defending their other worlds. And every time we destroy one, we show the galaxy that their empire isn't invincible." They moved through the dark tunnels under Seoul, emerging in different parts of the city. Duha took his position on top of an old church. Through his scope, he could see 3 Imperial shuttles patrolling nearby. Everyone in position. He asked through his radio. 20 voices answered yes. "Yoonji, are the devices ready?" "All set," she replied from her bunker. "Their ships won't know what hit them." Duha took a deep breath and aimed at the nearest shuttle. Its armor was patched and worn, like everything else the Empire had. They had gotten lazy, thinking no one would ever fight back. "Remember," he told his team, "we are the ghosts they cannot find. The shadows they cannot chase. Today we show them why you should never threaten a human world." His finger tightened on the trigger. Above, the Imperial ships continued their patrol, not knowing that their doom was already waiting in the darkness below. Yoonji stared at her computer screen, her hands shaking with excitement. After 2 weeks of non-stop work, she had finally broken the Empire's main encryption code. Secret messages from their ships filled her screen. "Duha," she called through the radio. "You need to see this. Right now." Duha was already on his way to the bunker. His team had just destroyed 3 more Imperial shuttles, making the big ships fire at each other in confusion. The Empire had lost 5 major ships in the past week alone. When he reached the bunker, Yoonji was printing pages of decoded messages. Her face was pale. "Look at this," she said, handing him the papers. "The Empire, it's not just weak. It's dying." Duha read the messages carefully. His eyes grew wider with each page. Sector 12 has fallen into complete rebellion. Fuel reserves at critical levels across all systems. Imperial Bank reports complete bankruptcy. 80% of fleet ships need major repairs. Military academies have not produced new officers in 50 years. "They're not here to conquer us," Yoonji said quietly. "They're running away. Earth was supposed to be their last hope, a fresh planet with new resources they could steal." Duha sat down heavily in a chair. "How many worlds do they still control?" Yoonji checked her computer. According to these messages, they claim to rule 10,000 worlds. But look at this. She pointed to another message. Most of those worlds haven't paid taxes or followed imperial orders in years. The Empire only truly controls about 50 planets now. Suddenly, their radio crackled. It was Ta-1, one of Duha's snipers. Imperial ships are moving. They're gathering above the city. Duha and Yunji rushed to the screens. All the remaining Imperial ships were forming a circle above Seoul. Commander Je-won's voice boomed across the city. Humans, you leave us no choice. Surrender now, or we will destroy your entire city. But something was wrong. Duha could see it in the way the ships moved. They were keeping too much distance from each other. Their formation was sloppy. Yunji, can you tap into their internal ship communications? She typed quickly on her keyboard. Soon, they could hear the voices of Imperial officers and crew. We can't fire at full power. The engines are failing. Sir, the crews are talking about deserting. We don't have enough fuel for a full bombardment. Duha smiled. He picked up his radio and switched it to broadcast on all frequencies. His voice would be heard across the city and in every Imperial ship. Listen well, soldiers of the dying Empire, he said calmly. We know the truth now. Your empire is bankrupt. Your ships are falling apart. Your crews want to run away. He paused, letting his words sink in. Look at your ships. Look at your weapons. Everything is old, broken, held together with patches and hope. You're not mighty conquerors. You're scavengers, trying to steal from Earth because you can't fix your own worlds anymore. The Imperial ships started moving uncertainly. Some began to drift out of formation. I make this offer once, Duha continued. Leave Earth now. Go back to your dying empire. Tell them what you found here. Tell them that humans don't bow to empty threats and fake power. Tell them that one human with one rifle brought your mighty ships down. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, one Imperial ship turned and started flying away from Earth. Then another, and another. Commander Je-won's voice came through the radio, filled with rage. This isn't over. The Empire will return. No, Duha said quietly. It won't, because we're going to tell every world you still control what we learned today. The Empire was already dead. We just helped everyone see it. Above Seoul, the Imperial ships retreated, their engines sputtering, their hulls creaking. The mighty galactic empire had finally met something it couldn't handle, the truth about its own weakness, revealed by a sniper who refused to be afraid. 3 days after the Imperial ships retreated from Earth, a small shuttle appeared in the sky above Seoul. Unlike the other Imperial ships, this one was clean and well-maintained. It carried a single passenger. Duha watched through his rifle scope as the shuttle landed in front of the military headquarters. A woman in an Imperial officer's uniform stepped out, her hands raised in surrender. My name is Min Seo, she announced. I was an Imperial fleet commander. I want to defect. General Park called Duha to the meeting room where they held Min Seo. She sat straight in her chair, looking tired but determined. Why should we trust you? Duha asked, his rifle never far from his hands. Min Seo placed a data disk on the table. Because I bring proof of how far the Empire has fallen, and because I want to help you end it completely. Yunji plugged the disk into her computer. The screen filled with maps, reports, and secret documents. Her eyes went wide as she read. She's telling the truth, Yunji said. This shows everything. The Empire only has enough fuel to power half its fleet. Most of their soldiers haven't been paid in years. They can't even make new ships anymore. They'd forgotten how. Min Seo nodded sadly. I was born on a world called New Paradise, but there's nothing paradise about it anymore. The Empire takes everything and gives nothing back. When I saw how you fought them here on Earth, I knew it was time to act. Duha studied her face carefully. How many others in the Empire think like you? More than half the fleet, Min Seo replied. But they're afraid. The Empire has ruled for so long, Most people can't imagine fighting back. Until now. She looked at Dua. You showed them it was possible. A single sniper brought the Empire to its knees. General Park spread out a map of the galaxy that Min Seo had brought. It showed all the worlds the Empire still controlled. Their territory is scattered, Min Seo explained. They can barely hold on to what they have left. And now, she smiled. Now every world in the Empire has seen the videos of what happened here. They've seen how weak the Empire really is. Suddenly, Yoonji's computer beeped with an urgent message. More Imperial ships are deserting. 3 full battle groups just declared independence from the Empire. Min Seo wasn't surprised. It's starting. The Empire forced worlds to obey through fear. But you showed them there's nothing left to fear. Duha walked to the window and looked at the sky. What will Commander Jaiwan do now? He'll have to attack Earth again, Min Seo said. He has no choice. If he doesn't, every world in the Empire will rebel. He'll gather every ship he has left for one final attack. General Park looked worried. How many ships? Maybe 50 big ships, but they're all in bad condition. And now, Min Seo stood up. Now you have me. I know every weakness in their ships, every flaw in their tactics, and I want to help you end the Empire forever. Duha turned to his team of snipers who had gathered in the room. Are you ready for a bigger fight? They all nodded. Their eyes were bright with determination. The Empire is coming back, Duha told them. But this time, we're not just defending Earth. We're going to help free every world they still control. Yoonji raised her hand. I've already sent messages to all the rebel worlds. They want to help. They want to learn how we fought back. Min Seo looked at the humans around her with new respect. The Empire thought humans were primitive because you don't have spaceships. They didn't understand that real strength isn't about technology. It's about the will to fight back. Outside, the sun was setting over Seoul. Somewhere in space, Commander Jaiwan was gathering his forces for one last attack. But now Earth was ready. And this time, they weren't fighting alone. 1 month after Min Seo's defection, Earth launched its first attack against the Empire. Duha stood in the captured Imperial shuttle, checking his rifle one last time. Around him, his best snipers did the same. Remember, Min Seo said from the pilot's seat, Imperial command ships always have the same layout. Their weak points are here, here, and here. She pointed to a map on the screen. Yoonji sat at a computer station she had built inside the shuttle. I'm connected to all rebel worlds now. They're ready to attack as soon as we give the signal. The plan was simple but dangerous. While rebel worlds attacked Imperial bases across the galaxy, Duha's team would slip aboard the Empire's main command ship. Their goal was to capture Commander Jaiwan and show the whole galaxy how weak the Empire's leaders really were. 5 minutes to target, Min Seo announced. Through the shuttle's windows, they could see the massive Imperial command ship. It was bigger than all the others, but Duha could see the rust on its hull and the flicking lights of failing systems. Their sensors are even worse than we thought, Yoonji said, looking at her screens. They think we're just another Imperial shuttle coming back from patrol. The shuttle landed in the command ship's huge docking bay. Duha's team pulled on captured Imperial uniforms over their combat gear. Thanks to Min Seo, they knew all the proper codes and protocols. Security is this way, Min Seo whispered as they walked through the ship's corridors. Once we control that, Yoonji can access their main computer. They passed Imperial crew members who barely looked at them. Many looked tired and hungry. Some of their uniforms were patched and worn. Stop. A guard called out as they approached the security center. This is a restricted area. Min Seo stepped forward. Emergency inspection. She held up her old commander's badge. Direct orders from. Before she could finish, Duha's team moved. In seconds, all the guards were down, knocked out silently. Not a single shot fired. 15 minutes until they expect the security check-in. Yunji said as she connected her computer to the Imperial systems. We need to hurry. The ship's computer systems were old and slow, but Yunji's fingers flew over her keyboard, breaking through decades-old security. I'm in, she said excitedly, sending the signal to all rebel worlds now. Across the galaxy, planets that had suffered under Imperial rule began their attacks. Imperial bases found themselves surrounded by angry citizens. Imperial ships discovered their crews were turning against them. Commander Jaewon is on the bridge, Min Seo reported, looking at the security feeds. But something's wrong. He's ordering all ships to fire on rebel worlds. He's going to kill millions. Duha checked his rifle. Not if we stop him first. How far to the bridge? 2 levels up, but it will be heavily guarded. No, Yunji said, still typing quickly. Look at the security cameras. Most of the guards have left their posts. They're running away. They moved quickly through the ship. Emergency alarms were ringing everywhere. Crew members ran past them, trying to escape in shuttles and escape pods. When they reached the bridge, only 5 guards stood with Commander Jaewon. The old commander's face was red with anger as he shouted orders that no one was following. It's over, Jaewon, Duha said calmly, stepping onto the bridge with his rifle ready. Your empire is finished. Jaewon turned, his eyes wild. You, the sniper. I'll destroy everything before I let you win. He reached for a control panel, but Min Seo was faster. Her punch knocked the commander to the floor. Broadcast on all frequencies, Duha told Yunji, let everyone in the galaxy see their mighty commander. As Jaewon lay on the floor, crying like a child, cameras showed his image to every world in the empire. The last symbol of imperial power was revealed as nothing but a weak, frightened man. The empire is dead, Duha announced to the galaxy. All worlds are free. And let everyone remember, this is what happens when you threaten Earth. The capture of Commander Jaewon started a fire that spread across the galaxy. Every hour, more worlds declared their independence from the Empire. Imperial soldiers threw down their weapons. Imperial ships joined the rebels. Duha watched it all from the command center they had set up in the captured Imperial flagship. Yunji's computers showed the Empire falling apart piece by piece. Another 10 worlds just declared freedom, she reported. The Empire only controls 20 planets now. Min Seo studied the reports with a troubled face. Something's wrong. The loyal Imperial ships are gathering, but they're not running away. They're forming attack groups. Suddenly, all their screens lit up with warning signals. A new voice boomed through their communication systems. This is High Admiral Kyorin of the Imperial First Fleet. Commander Jaewon was weak. I am not. All Imperial forces attack every rebel world. Show no mercy. Duha grabbed his radio. How many ships does he have? 30 battle cruisers, Min Seo said quickly. They're old, but they're the best the Empire has left. And Kyorin is dangerous. He's one of the few commanders who actually knows how to fight. They watched as Imperial ships appeared over rebel worlds. But something was different this time. The rebels weren't running away. Look, Yunji pointed to her screens. On every world, people were fighting back. They used the tactics Duha had taught them. Small ships attacked the Imperial cruisers' weak points. Snipers took out Imperial shuttlecraft. They're doing it, Min Seo whispered. Every world is fighting like Earth did. But Admiral Kyorin wasn't giving up. His ships began firing on civilian areas, trying to force the rebels to surrender. We have to stop him, Duha said. He turned to his team. Get ready. We're going to end this today. They prepared their captured flagship. Most of the Imperial crew had joined their side, tired of serving a dying empire. Those who stayed loyal were locked in the brig with Jaewon. All rebel worlds, listen carefully, Duha broadcast across the galaxy. Admiral Kyorin thinks he can save the Empire through fear, but we know better. We know their ships are failing. We know their crews are tired. Today we finish what Earth started. Rebel ships appeared from behind moons and planets. They had been waiting, watching, learning. Now they struck at the Imperial ships like Duha had taught them. Quick, precise hits at weak points. Impossible. Kyorin's voice shook with rage. You're nothing but primitives. You can't defeat the Empire. The Empire defeated itself, Duha replied calmly. You stopped building, stopped learning, stopped trying to be better. You just took from others until there was nothing left to take. Imperial ships began exploding across space. Their old engines couldn't handle the stress of real combat. Their weapons misfired. Their crews made mistakes. This is your last chance, Kyorin, Duha announced. Surrender now. Never, the Admiral screamed. All ships ran the rebels. Die for the Empire. But his crews had other ideas. One by one, Imperial ships shut down their weapons. Some turned and fled. Others surrendered. No, no, no. Kyorin's voice broke. I order you to fight. They won't, Duha said quietly. Your empire is built on fear, and they're not afraid anymore. On his screens, Duha could see the last Imperial ships giving up. The mighty empire that had ruled for 1,000 years was dying. Not from a massive space battle, but from the simple courage of people who refused to be afraid. Send a message to all worlds, Duha told Yunji. Tell them the Empire is finished. Tell them they're free. As the message went out, cheers erupted across the galaxy. The Empire that everyone thought was invincible had been brought down, and it had started with one sniper on Earth who dared to say no. 1 year after the Empire's fall, Duha stood in a large room on Earth's new space station. Representatives from 100 free worlds sat before him, eager to learn. On the walls, screens showed thousands more watching from their home planets. The Empire fell because it forgot something important, Duha told them. It forgot that real strength isn't about having the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. Real strength comes from here. He touched his heart. Yunji sat at her usual spot behind her computers, but now she wasn't breaking Imperial codes. Instead, she was helping different worlds talk to each other, sharing knowledge that the Empire had kept secret for centuries. Another group of ships found in deep space, she reported happily. Former Imperial citizens looking to join the Free Worlds Alliance. The alliance had been Min Sio's idea. After the Empire fell, many worlds were lost and scared. They needed to work together, but not like the Empire had forced them to. This time, every world had an equal voice. Show them what we found, Duha said. Yunji pressed some buttons. The screen showed pictures of old Imperial cities, slowly falling apart. The Empire had forgotten how to fix things, how to build new technology. They only knew how to take from others. This is why the Empire failed, Duha explained. They stopped learning. They stopped trying to grow. They thought being strong meant making others weak. In the front row, a young alien who looked like a blue-skinned human raised his hand. But how do we stay strong? What if another empire tries to rise? Duha smiled. That's why you're here. To learn not just how to fight, but when to fight. And more importantly, how to build things instead of taking them. Min Sio stepped forward. She wore the simple uniform of the Alliance now, not the fancy imperial clothes. The Empire ruled through fear and ignorance. They kept worlds afraid and stupid so they couldn't fight back. We will do the opposite. Share knowledge. Help each other grow stronger. But Earth doesn't have spaceships, someone called out. How can you teach us? We don't have ships yet, Duha corrected. But we have something more important. The will to learn, to build, to become better. And we have all of you to help us. He walked to a window that looked out at space. Earth's first real spaceship was being built nearby, with help from friendly alien worlds. It wasn't the biggest or the most advanced, but it was a start. Look at what we did with just rifles and courage, Duha said. Imagine what we can do together, helping each other instead of fighting. Yunji's computer beeped again. Message from the prison station. Former Commander Jaiwan wants to talk to you again. Duha shook his head. Tell him the same thing as always, when he's ready to help rebuild what the Empire destroyed. Then we'll talk. The representatives began sharing their own stories, how they fought back against the Empire, how they were rebuilding their worlds. Each one had learned from Earth's example, adding their own ideas and courage. The galaxy is entering a new age, Min Seo told the crowd. Not an age of empires and conquest, but an age of cooperation and growth. Duha picked up his old rifle. It was more of a symbol now. He hadn't needed to use it since the Empire fell. Remember why the Empire died. Not just because they were weak, but because they chose to be weak. They chose to stop growing, to stop learning, to rule through fear instead of strength. He looked at the faces before him, saw the hope and determination in their eyes. We choose a different path. We choose to be strong together, to learn from each other, to build instead of destroy. That's the real lesson Earth taught the galaxy. Outside the window, ships from 100 worlds flew past. They weren't Imperial ships anymore. They were trading vessels, exploration ships, people freely traveling between worlds. The age of the Empire was over. The age of freedom had begun.